All right, so apologies, friends. I don't know what is going on tonight, but Facebook is not being my friend and it keeps kicking me off of my live feed. So I'm just going to do some really quick filming here and get that uploaded so you all can do the Make It With Me Monday for tonight. Okay, so I wanted to start out by sharing that, yay, we can finally look at the inside of our mini catalog on camera. The item I'm going to be using tonight can be found on page 5, and it's called A Walk in the Forest Designer Series paper. And it's going to be featured on each of my projects tonight. Each catalog, Stampin' Up! Raises money for some sort of cause. We call it our Making a Difference program. And in this particular catalog, it's a designer series paper pack, which I'm super excited about. Usually it's a stamp set, and that doesn't always, appeal to everybody. But I think everyone can find something in this designer series paper pack that appeals to them. And so when you purchase it, just know that you'll be sending money towards a great cause. I need to double check and find out what that was, because initially in here it just told us spreading cheer and stuff. Oh, Toys for Tots. That's what we're going to be doing with it in America. We're giving it to Toys for Tots for Christmas. So really great cause, really good paper collection. Let me show it to you really super quick here. Of course, double-sided, like all of our designer series papers are. Your color palette is Pretty Peacock, Old Olive, Garden Green, Pecan Pie, Balmy Blue, and Cherry Cobbler. And as you go through, if you'll notice, these particular images in here will match the Bear Punch if you're going to do the Berry Christmas Suite. And on this last piece here, these trees also match the Merriest Trees bundle, which is going to be used on one of my first samples tonight. The back sides have some basic patterns. So here is an evergreen. This could resemble snow, obviously, little white dots on Balmy Blue. We've got a nice stripe with Cherry Cobbler and Garden Green in it. These are snowflakes. And then this stripe, very, very basic, good masculine pattern, all of the green colors represented. And then this one has little tiny trees printed tone on tone. So really nice pack of paper. I highly recommend grabbing that one. And like I said, it coordinates well with Merriest Trees, which is one of the pieces I'm going to be sharing with you tonight. In there, you get that stamp set if you want to do the bundle. Look at all of these dies it comes with. Now, what I think is really super cool is that you can choose the size of the tree elements you want to be using all on this big tree. So this one will cut out the top part, then the second part, then the third part, et cetera, et cetera. And in the end, you can have a very multi-layered tree, which I think is really neat. There's also an overlay stamp, so you could do two tone-on-tone color, or either a tone-on-tone color or a light and a dark situation, so that shows up. There's a neat tag shape in here. There's little ornaments and presents and stars, and those all have a coordinating die to do with them. And then there's regular squares and ribbons, so you could make packages from your DSP. This is like a tree stand to put underneath it, and this one here is the tree trunk. And then this one, I'll show you in one of my samples later, it creates kind of like a garland of rows of garland that you can then add to the tree itself. So really, really great stamp set, even much cooler die set, frankly, I think. Really fun to use. All right, let's get going. So for tonight, you needed a piece of cardstock that was 4 1/4 by 11 and scored at 5 1/2. I'm going to be using our thick basic white. And then I said a piece of designer series paper that's 3 by 5. So again, mine is coming from the, excuse me, the A Walk in a Forest designer series paper. And then a neutral circle that's about 1 3/4 to 2 inches, and then a piece that's about 3/4 by 1 3/4, or really whatever fits the phrase that you want to use to go with this particular layout. And then you just need some images or focal point or something to spruce up that circle with. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is show you how I did my circle piece here. I took my really large tree and I inked up most of it, let's say, down to about halfway. And then really what I did is I stamped it first on a large piece of paper and then punched it out. But as you can see, since it's see-through, you can kind of see where I'm going with this here. And then I laid it down and I just have part of a tree that's showing, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead to the one that I created ahead of time, because I also added a die cut star to the top of it. In crushed curry. I just cut out one of those little stars with the dies that match. Okay, so for my phrase, I'm going to be using the Love and Joy, which comes in that Merriest Trees stamp set. So that's going to go on my phrase like so. Okay, so you've got your image and you've got your phrase all ready to go. And I'm just making sure I didn't stick my fingers too badly into my green ink pad because I have white paper and that's going to show up really obviously. Okay, so I'm going to take my cardstock, give that a nice burnish. You're going to grab that designer series paper and you can use dimensionals in any of these layers that you so choose. This is going to go along this edge here with kind of a basic even border all the way around. Okay, so that is on the right side. I do have some where I showed it on the left, so you can see the difference if you so choose to. All right, I'm going to pop up my circle with dimensionals because I do like a little bit of lift in that right there. So take off those backings. Okay, and I'm going to do my circle hanging over a little bit here and kind of up a little bit. And then your phrase, you can either layer on the top, you could have it coming out from underneath. Depending on where you put your circle, it could go near the top here as well. I'm going to go underneath on the bottom, and I'm going to have this lay flat against there, like so. All right, so there is my basic design using those elements that I had you guys prep for tonight. Let me show you some alternative samples. Again, all of the DSP comes from A Walk in the Forest. Here is another one, and I'm using the dies from Magical Meadow, which is another suite in the catalog. But I like the way the dies for that have these sprigs and berries, and that's exactly what was pictured here in the designer series paper. So I like the way that they went together. And then this one here that says, "May the season of sparkle bring joy and delight," that does come from that same suite, the Magical Meadow suite. All right, now I moved on to the snowflake paper. And as you can see here on each of those two, I did add a little bit of a layer behind my DSP. Therefore, and this one I did die cuts as opposed to a stamped image. On this one, I used, there's a giant stamp. It's about this big. It's called Snow Crystal. And I stamped that a couple times on my background paper. And then I stamped it and cut out just the middle part of it to do on my circle. And I added Wink of Stella to it, so it should have a little sparkle in there. And then I put a little rhinestone in the middle there too for some extra sparkle, because snowflakes always sparkle as far as I'm concerned. So, so there was that one. And then the rest of the three, I decided to use the other sides of the paper that maybe didn't look quite so Christmassy. So don't focus totally on how Christmassy this particular designer series paper looks. So here's that stripe I was telling you about, the one I thought made a really nice masculine pattern. So it has all the colors of the greens in there. So I have a pretty peacock background. And then in the gift parts, I have the balmy blue, the old olive, and the garden green showing up in there. This is the Trucking Along stamp, which is one of the online exclusives. I stamped it directly onto the circle and then stamped it again so that I could cut out part of it and overlap it so it looks like the truck is going off of the circle. The special delivery comes from that same stamp set as well. So there's one version of that. Then I used Supremely Awesome, which is the pizza stamp set. It's got a chef holding up a pizza tray, some pizza images, really cute stamp set. And I thought it went really well with this red and green stripe. So this is Cherry Cobbler and Garden Green. So I stamped and colored my pizza. I fussy cut the small one. And then this ribbon comes from a 2-pack that's in our annual catalog where you get garden green and real red together. So I have just a piece of that garden green ribbon behind there just for a little bit of visual imagery. And then lastly, I made a baby card with that blue one that kind of looks like it could be a snow pattern. But so this is for a baby boy that I know is on his way. So I used, again, that DSP there with the dots. This comes from the Easter Bunny stamp set, which I thought made a nice baby reference because it says enjoy all the little moments. I took my white baker's twine and I colored it with balmy blue ink. I added some balmy blue shadow with my blending brush to the white circle, so it wasn't quite so bright starkness there. And then I punched out the bunny because that matches the Easter Bunny punch, and then colored him in with my blends. Okay, so let's go back to the one I just showed you on screen. And again, here is my stepped up version. So as you can see, I made a few changes. So what I did first is I changed the back color of the card itself. I changed it to garden green, but then I did a layer of white where I used the die that is called Tiny, let me make sure I'm getting this right here, Tiny Christmas Trees die. Let me see if I can find what page that's on for you guys, because it might be one that you've overlooked. What it is it's one solid die that is about the size of the 4 by 5¼ layer, and all it does is cut out, like you may guess, rows and rows of little tiny Christmas trees. And I thought that would be a really cute way to back this one that is focusing on the Christmas tree. And so here it is on page 13. And like I said, it might be easy to miss because it kind of just blends in with this particular sample. But what's also fun, depending on what color you use for the tree part of it there, you'll get all those little tiny trees cut out. So it'd be great use of, if you're gonna do like a shaker card or something, you'll have all kinds of little tree confetti that you can be using on that. So there again, I have the same DSP. I used a different phrase from that set where I did some masking, and I took just the Merry Christmas off the bottom of the We Wish You a Merry Christmas image. So masked out the words and just did Christmas and Merry next to each other. And this is that garland piece I was talking to you about. So I ran that piece through with cherry cobbler, and then you can layer that onto your tree to look like a garland. And I used a different one of the dies for the star on the top and added a little bit of a rhinestone. So that is those guys right there for the on camera and the stepped up versions. And like I said, a couple of those I did move over to the left side just so you could see kind of the difference in that particular layout. So it depends on which way your phrase might like to go, what way your imagery might be facing, that sort of thing. So there's those two samples, and then these two guys, and lastly, the holly and berry. Okay, so there you go, guys. That is it for tonight. I hope you like this layout, and I would love to see what you've made with it. So please share a picture of it under this post and let me see what you've been using to create using these pieces I shared with you. All right, everyone. Apologies again for whatever issues Facebook was having tonight, but I hope that this is a good substitute. All right, I will see you guys next Monday for another Make It With Me Monday. Take care, everybody.